Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bengal Tiger podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Shea Dixon. Shea, it's July 3rd, so almost a holiday, but we wanted to get on here and talk some LSU football, some off-season stuff, some competition stuff. Just kind of cover everything we've heard and talked about over the past month or so. So, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. Let's get this kicked off. If you're watching on YouTube, you don't want to hear any of how we're doing. You're more interested in what's going on. Matthew, you've got a half
Right.
tease going here. It's fit check. I'm rocking the original SEC
Woo!
sweatshirt. A lot of people have this. This became kind of trendy. I wasn't on the front end of it, but
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah,
the old
the
school
mascot.
mascots. But it as of July 1st, Texas and OU are in the SEC. So this is vintage now because this does not have them on it. This does have Missouri and everybody that was currently on it. So
Yeah.
a sweatshirt that was made to look throwback but was current, but is now throwback because it does not have the two new teams. So fit check, I'm giving myself 6 of 10, solid sweatshirt.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have it,
Yeah.
and isn't vintage enough yet. Your turn. I'm
I have
reading a
the
shack on your
Yeah, I have
T-shirt.
the
What are you doing?
Shaq
Orlando
shirt.
Magic shack. Oh no, that's LSU
No, it's
shack.
LSU. It's all LSU. I don't know how I'm
This
get
was
yeah.
bought on a street corner somewhere. Where did you find this?
No, I found it online. Where did I find it
That's the New
online?
Age street corner.
Yeah, New Age Street Corner. I don't remember exactly where, but it was a good site. But yeah, this is my go-to LSU shirt for sure. Yeah,
You've got
shout
the
out.
infamous dunk, which is now his statue on it.
Yeah, this is clean. I
I
like that
like
shirt quite
that.
a bit.
I
So
like that.
yeah,
Well, and
go
Shaq
ahead.
also in his rap days. Let's give a shout out to the current rapper Flaugier. Dropped her new album this past week. Ended up getting airtime on the BET Music Awards
Yeah,
show, and got to shout out her song, her album, and did a collab on there with Lil Wayne. So officially, she is
I'm
beyond
telling
America's
you.
Got Talent, which she was on twice,
Yeah,
and putting out a number of singles and different collabs. A real full length featured album. That is
I'm
an
t-
impressive look
yeah.
in this era.
Yeah, I'm telling you, with Angel gone, Flaugier is about to step up into like a different atmosphere, a different stratosphere of like stardom. Like last year, the last couple years, like okay, we know this girl, she raps and plays basketball and stuff. Now that Angel's gone, it's gonna be if LSU is as good as we think they're gonna be, it's gonna be like Flaugier, like maybe like the second biggest name in the sport besides like Juju Watkins in terms of college basketball and Paige Beckers.
Yeah, came out a beast. If you want to Google that,
There
that's
you
her
go.
Lil Wayne Flaugier song. But the full length album is out now, so you can check that out. I believe the record is also titled "Came Out a Beast," if I'm not mistaken.
The album is I thought it was like Best of Both Worlds or something like that.
It's best of both worlds. Okay, best of both worlds. Yes, you're right. You're right. 9 tracks. NLA Choppa's on it. Too rare. So for those that are into the rap game, there you go. And
Yeah.
those that not, check her out. She's been heavy on the no cursing vibe. It's
Yeah.
mostly songs about succeeding and bouncing back from adversity.
Yeah.
She's considered sort of a breath of fresh air in the rap game right now. She's like real deal, Maddie B.
No, she is. She is. Yeah, that you did a good job laying it out for everybody there.
Well, I
So
messed up the album name, but
that's it.
I've listened to it on Spotify now. It's on Apple Music, Spotify. Go check it out. So shout out Flaugier, who we have both agreed has balanced NIL and being a high level athlete under a player coach like Kim Mulkey, winning a national championship already. There might not be anyone out there, male or female, doing it at that level and balancing both. Like we've seen LSU be sort of the NIL era hub of the Livy Dunn, who's on anything and everything. And then Angel coming through and being able to capitalize. But Flaugier had all of this before she even got here. So to
Mhm.
then continue to build on that is it's impressive. And she's a hell of a basketball player. What
Yeah.
all SEC second team or one or the other this
I
past year.
believe
She
so.
was freshman all SEC in year one.
Yep.
Beast. So shout out to Flaugier and our fit checks. All right, let's move into it. I drove all the way down to South Louisiana, deep into South Louisiana, home of Thibodeau area. Went to Nichols State on Friday night, this past Friday, for the Manning Academy, Passing Academy. They hold it every summer. Peyton, Eli, Cooper, Arch are all out there. And they have this week of camp for eighth graders to 12th graders, and all these college quarterbacks come in and they help and be instructors and coach the kids up, and it's a fun time. I was talking to Nussmeier about it. He was like, "Look, between when all of us, these quarterbacks, were all about the same age, they went through high school together." He was like, "We knew each other in high school by recruiting. We get to college, we play each other, we sort of text or DM. Then you come to events like that where you spend a week together." So it's kind of funny. It was like the who's who of college quarterbacks, but all of them were just sort of hanging out, being buddies as they went through the week. But Nussmeier was there. I'll give you the other SEC quarterbacks, Matty B. And now that we include Oklahoma and Texas, Jackson Arnold, who started at Oklahoma this past year, and then Quinn Ewers was there as well. So was Arch Manning. But I'll get to the throwing portion of stuff here in a minute. And Quinn participated in that. He's Texas's quarterback. Carson Beck was there from Georgia. Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. I could bounce around to some of the other guys. Like, gosh, let me just go to you name the school beyond South Carolina, not
Ole
having any
Miss,
Gordon
Jackson
Sellers
Dart.
there.
Jackson Dart was there.
Yeah, I mentioned Dart. Brady Cook from Missouri. Um, is it who's State's quarterback now? Shapen.
Baylor's quarterback
Yeah, I'm
was
thinking
there.
SEC. Shapen.
Yeah, sorry.
Will Howard's at Ohio State now. Will Rogers, I believe, is gone. He's not at State anymore, is he?
No.
They took Baylor transfer Shapen. Graham Mertz from Florida, who had a sneaky good year last year, was there. So pretty much, look, every kind of Jalen Milrow was there from Bama. Nico Iamaleava was not there from Tennessee. But I would say what of the there were double-digit SEC quarterbacks there with only a handful missing. I watched them just do sort of warm up throws. I watched them do some of the daytime throws. They ended up eventually working with some college receivers, but during the Friday Night Lights, they had a bunch of high school guys out there and different guys from the area. But I will put Nussmeier up there. Granted, everybody else I've really mentioned has started a lot of games. Nussmeier started one, but he is older than a number of these guys. So you can kind of combine both of them. Game experience he doesn't have, but he has been around and certainly refined his game in college. He was, and then toss in Dylan Gabriel was there, who was
Here,
OU starter,
let me
now
share my
Oregon
screen.
starter.
There you go.
That yeah, there's the top group that I kind of came up with that I liked. I would have tossed Graham Mertz in there as well. But Wegman at A&M was there. He will be their starter. Riley Leonard at Notre Dame, who is at Duke. He'll be with Mike Denbrock now. Garrett Green for another year at West Virginia. So you get the picture. Cade Klubnik at Clemson. These are many of, minus Cam Ward and Iamaleava and maybe a couple of others. These Shador Sanders. These are the best quarterbacks in the country this year. I think there were 40 something guys there. I would comfortably put Nussmeier in the top 6, and I'm not taking in my like extra exposure to him or anything of that nature. I actually am familiar with most of these guys because they were high profile high school guys, or I've watched them play in college.
Yeah.
I feel really good about two things. One, Nussmeier being LSU starter. I don't think that just because he has one start under his belt, that I go into this season feeling like, oh, it's a complete unknown for him. Like, I don't think he's going to be rattled. I think he knows what he's in for. And I don't think he's going to look like a first time starter. I think there's enough playing time out there dating back to the SEC championship 2 years ago when he played the whole
Yeah.
second half against Georgia, that he'll be comfortable in his spot. He looked good with all of his throws. We know he can sling it deep, but the short and intermediate game, just the timing looked really good to me. The other thing is, and I just don't feel like it's being talked about. Maybe we hear more about this at SEC Media Days. They may not have like that Joe Burrow or no doubter, Jaden Daniels, even Heisman winner, number one pick type player, but the SEC is deep with
Yeah.
quarterbacks. Like I think now with the transfer portal, a lot of these guys are portal guys. Adding Ewers from Texas, adding Jackson Arnold from OU, those are two of the better guys that will be in this mix. I can't I mean, I guess like a Vandy, there are teams that may struggle. I don't know who's taken over at Arkansas now, but uh, this will be, I think, top to bottom, one of the deepest we've seen with SEC quarterbacks. I think all these
Yeah,
guys can play.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, you go down the list, especially with the top 10 teams, and like the worst quarterback you could name is probably like Graham Mertz, like of the
Mertz had a
top.
good year last year.
Yeah, he had a good year, but it's like, okay, Jackson Arnold, is still to be determined. He has to,
I'm high
kind
on
of
that.
prove it.
I'm good
I'm
with
high on
him.
him,
I think he's going to be
high on him
good.
too. Denton Geyer, I've watched him play. Brady Cook, you go down,
Tore up
yeah,
LSU.
and that's before you even get to the top tier, like I said, of Nussmeier, Milrow, Beck, Amaleva,
Quinn
Wegman,
Ewers.
Ewers. So yeah, it's an incredible quarterback conference. Obviously, it's just an incredible conference in general, but um, I will say I just put out the Oklahoma opponent preview, and man, that schedule is brutal. That schedule is just brutal.
LSU
There's a couple
schedule or
teams.
OU's?
There's a Oklahoma's, but there's a couple teams that just have some brutal schedules in the SEC
Florida.
this year. Florida and Oklahoma are at the top of that list. That is just terrifying. Oklahoma's team win total is at 7.5, and I'm not even like I think they're just as good as they were last year, but they're just going to the
Welcome to
SEC.
the SEC.
Yeah, so
But I did want to make a point as we got going here is that now that I've seen Nussmeier and look, physically he is settled into where, I mean, he put on a good amount of weight from when he got here. He's already a big kid, 6'2
yeah,
plus. But he's filled the frame out, and I think he's at a spot where he's comfortable. And now it's just about kind of ironing out all those little details of what Joe Sloan and the staff want from him going into the season. But he looks locked in and ready. And just from talking to him, you can tell he's confident. He doesn't view it as I'm a first time starter. I think that's why that Wisconsin bowl game was probably so important, right? Like,
yeah,
not only did he start, but he got to face adversity. He got to, have that role of, all right, we need to come back. And then he got to lead a game winning drive. So a lot of things you'd like to check off your list as a starting quarterback sort of happened in one game for him, let alone that he's played on the road at Bama when Jaden got hurt. And like I said, in an SEC championship against Georgia, throwing it downfield that whole second half when Jaden had to sit. I feel
yeah.
good, very good about Nussmeier going into this year.
Yeah, everybody knows how high I am on Nussmeier. At the very least, I think he's a top 10 quarterback in the country. I think he very well could
Ooh,
be pushing higher than that. But it's this is an interesting year for quarterbacks because I feel like a lot of the names nobody really knows how high to put them. Like just in general, like obviously you have Shador and Carson Beck. A lot of people put up there, um, and Cam Ward, but like I mean, I don't think it's a great year for quarterbacks across the country. I think there's a lot of really good quarterbacks. Like it's not to me
right.
like the Bryce Young, like CJ Stroud types, but it's a lot of really good quarterbacks. So it's interesting to see how people kind of tier them or rank them differently because I honestly think it's really subjective coming in. There's not a ton of like, okay, this is Bryce Young, like this is CJ
Right.
Stroud, like this is
And look, I wonder how
Trevor
Dylan
Lawrence.
Gabriel works out at Oklahoma, or excuse me, Oregon after leaving Oklahoma because I thought
Yeah,
he looked excellent out there, southpaw, and we know he can run it. But by the same token, how does a Will Howard type look going from K State to Ohio State
Riley
and
Leonard.
immediately being with the top receiver room in the country? Probably, maybe could be
Mhm.
the case, and a team with expectations that hey, after Michigan just won a national championship, they've got to capitalize on how well they've recruited, how great their seasons have gone. They land him in the portal. It's going to be because of the portal. I think that all of these teams, and we've noted the SEC wins, they didn't get left at the altar with quarterbacks. Everybody's got someone going into this year that they're buying into that they feel like can get it done for them.
Yeah. So all right.
Well, there's no competition at quarterback for LSU this
No.
offseason to talk about, but you've been rolling out your competition series. We just picked out a few that we would talk about today, and we'll continue to do through the month of July on the podcast. But today we're going to go wide receiver, corner, safety. So let's start. We just talked about Nussmeier, easy transition, wide receiver. And our goal here, instead of just naming out every receiver they have, we talked about a lot of that in the spring.
Yeah.
We're going to pick our top three and then we get a sleeper. You get a fourth pick for a sleeper. But let's put together everything that you've learned to this point, whether it was from last year, spring ball, the buzz out of summer workouts, just what your gut tells you about the type of players they are, or what Hankton likes in his receivers. We have to start, I guess we should start right at number one. And I don't think there's any great debate over who the number one guy is, and that's
No.
Kyron Lacey. Is there a case for someone else? And maybe we debate that when we pick our second and third guys. But given his experience and now being on the team a few years and coming back, I would think that Lacey is your presumed number one receiver going into this year after being the number three guy a year ago behind a pair of first round picks in Neighbors and Thomas.
Yeah, he has all the tools that I think lend to being a number one receiver at LSU. I think he has the playmaking. He's not he's not as fast as Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, obviously. And we had questions about the hands all the way up until like game like 5 of last year, game 6 of last year. But I think he ironed out the drops in the last half of the season. I think he became a lot more physical over the offseason. He's taken on the challenge, and I think Kyron Lacey is at this point my clear cut number one for LSU. I think he's gonna have an awesome year. I do think it'll be like more variety, and that kind of goes for a lot of players in this room. They're not as fast. Like there's only one player as fast as Neighbors and Thomas in this room, and that's Chris Hilton, I think.
And Jelani Watkins.
Yeah, and Jelani Watkins. Sorry, definitely Jelani Watkins, who's faster than everybody. But Kyron Lacey, I think, is going to have an extremely versatile role. I think he'll be able to have those yards after catch plays that we saw, the aforementioned players do. And I just think he's well built and he's experienced. This is year 5 for Kyron Lacey, so this is a money year to say the least. And he's gonna have to come out and perform, and I think he does.
And for those, I mean, we've seen him play, but until you see him out of his uniform, Kyron Lacey is a big framed receiver. I mean, he is
Yeah,
north of 6'2". He's easily 215 plus. Um,
yeah,
what you said, I think, is what most people will who follow LSU closely, watch the games, whatever it might be, are familiar with him. When he first came here from UL, and look, he was a 4-star on 3 coming out of high school. We were sky high on him. Uh, Played basketball, was a great basketball player. Could have gone D1 in basketball, didn't. But that speaks to his athleticism. Went to UL, played very well, came here, and just dropped like when he got his chances. More often than not, the narrative became he dropped the football. Last year, as you just said, by midseason, he seemed to erase that. Is that not a concern for you going into this year? Like, are we no longer talking about Lacey and drops being something that correlates?
I think some of the problem, the first year he got to LSU and then the early portion of last year was he wasn't targeted a ton. So every time he got thrown the ball, it felt like a big deal. I think to him, it felt like a big deal. And so it got in his head relatively early and it just kind of, continued to build from there in terms of a struggle for him. But I think now that he's wide receiver one, you can't really worry about that. If he's targeted 7 times a game, I mean, it's not gonna be in his head the way that it was initially. So I don't have it as a concern. I think he knows that it was a big deal. That A&M game, I think he was as distraught as anybody like 2 years ago. So I'm not worried about him with drops this year. He's not as like he doesn't have the hands of Malik Neighbors, clearly. Like, but I don't think it's gonna be a big deal to the point where he becomes like a liability almost.
And he did come up with some very big clutch moments where he caught the football for him last year.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yes, I think you're right. He could shake that. So we agree on that. We're picking our top 3 receivers entering the season, the presumed starters, let's even call it. I
Yep.
assume we're going to pick the same 2 people next. I'm just not convinced the order will be the same. So you want to
Yeah,
go first for your
the
second
o-
pick?
the order will be different, and this is something I think LSU fans are curious about. You put out an awesome story, which I'll let you expand on yesterday. But I'm still rolling here with CJ Anderson. Sorry, CJ Daniels.
You
Um,
tried to cheat there by combining 2
com-
talented players as
Combined
one.
CJ Daniels and Aaron Anderson. But CJ
CJ
Daniels
could
out
put
of
Aaron
Liberty.
Anderson on his shoulders and they could, or maybe Aaron could put CJ on his shoulders and then they'd be a really fast, tall wideout.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, CJ Daniels out of Liberty, I still think is the second best receiver on this team. 1,000 yards last year on one of the most run heavy offenses in the country with the Flames. Obviously, extremely physical, 6'2", plus a veteran, spent his whole career at Liberty making plays. So you have those attributes. And then I think what we saw in the spring was he can have that yards after catch ability. In the spring game in particular, he had the one where he shrugged off two dudes and just got an extra 10 yards. And I just think that's the playmaking that you want out of a receiver. He has the big playability. He can make contested catches at an incredible rate. That was honestly, he does not have the top end speed that you want from, I think, a wide receiver to like a starting receiver at LSU, but he has all the other traits in terms of strength, physicality, contested catchability, hands, route running. So I'm sticking with CJ Daniels as my wide receiver 2 right now. Oh, you mute yourself.
Just gave a hot take. I'll repeat it. No, I'm kidding. Do you view him as the slot? Is CJ Daniels your slot receiver here?
So it's complicated because I've seen some people throw that around. I don't think he is that technical. Like when I think of a slot, and even I understand Malik Neighbors, went to the slot and just kind of ran those like slot fades and to a degree. I don't know if he has the speed to, whereas Malik and some other players, and I understand some bigger players have been used that slot before, but I don't know if he matches up as well against safeties as I would like a Xavier Thomas, where I think Xavier Thomas can just flat out beat safeties and nickels in a variety of ways. I think CJ Daniels maybe only has like one fastball against those guys. I think against corners, CJ Daniels matches up just better. So I would like him on the perimeter personally. I don't know how exactly they're going to approach the slot position though this fall.
We'll see in fall camp if he is that slot guy or if they go with someone else. But my number two, which really I'll paint this as who I think maybe I was going to say ends up maybe most productive on the season, but that might pin me into a corner here,
Gotta do
given
it.
that your pick, CJ Daniels. Look, Malik and Brian Thomas were first round picks. They both went over 1,000 yards and had double digit touchdowns receiving in 2023. Only two guys that hit the portal had hit those same marks. They caught 1,000 yards worth of passes. They caught double digit touchdowns. One was Jamori Macklin coming out of North Texas, Mean Green. He's at
Mhm.
Kentucky now. The other was your pick, CJ Daniels, who left Liberty for LSU. So production is there with him, right? And I get it. I'm right there. I hope and for this offense that he has a big year. And I have him in my top three. I'll just slide Chris Hilton into two. And I say it because he's finally healthy. We knew that, yes, last year in 2023, that when you have two first round picks at receiver and Jaden Daniels, who's going to run the football half the time on his own at quarterback, and Kyron Lacey as your third guy, and then a number of other wideouts, that he wasn't going to have some massive year. He still stepped up in spots. His biggest spot came in the bowl game, probably when he reels in a touchdown from Nussmeier in the corner of the end zone, gets his feet down, and he had a massive grab on a deep ball on that final drive of the game that set up the
Yeah.
Brian Thomas touchdown. So I think that he's ready. Look, this is a kid who, his dad was hella talented back in the day as one of the top athletes in this area. He comes through Zachary, Chris Hilton Jr. does, and in ninth grade, high jump 7 foot and wins state. And when they went out there to start summer workouts, only two guys hit 22 miles an hour that first day, just kind of right out of the gates. And, they wear all those trackers. One is Jelani Watkins. He had just gotten to campus. If you don't know him, he's LSU's four-star signee, New Orleans native, but he had been playing over at Atascocita in Texas. He'd been at Klein Forest before that, but he is one of the top. He is the fastest. He and Gatlin Blair, who signed with Oregon, are the two fastest receivers or players in any position that are playing college football out of this class. And probably now I'd have to look across the board now that like Devin Achane has gone from A&M, that they are probably two of the fastest guys out there, Olympic like level. Jelani Watkins will sprint for LSU, and he has a chance to break a 10 flat when legal 100, which he was nearly tracking to do. Ran a 10.14 this spring in
Yeah.
high school. Trendon Holiday hit 10 flat one time in college. So we're talking about a guy with speed that's even beyond that. He hit 22 when they put on the vest and ran that first run. The only other player on the team who hit 22 is Chris Hilton. A healthy Chris Hilton has speed, can jump. We know all those things. What puts it over the top for me is when I hear that through spring, when the doors were closed at practice, when the media wasn't there, even some when the media was there, obviously, but into summer workouts, it's a full focus on the short and intermediate game, the route tree, and how he's bought into that and how much of a complete receiver he looks like now. And I think you made the comment. I wrote the story. I thought in the very Cliff's Note version of it, you said if he's adding this to his game, it's done. Like
Yeah.
it's over for a defense because not many guys can cover a receiver who has that kind of speed, that kind of leaping ability, can catch the football, but also now is not just a vertical threat, which we saw Brian Thomas do the same thing, move on from being just a vertical threat to being someone they relied upon on third downs and second downs and moving the sticks in big moments. I've got Chris Hilton as my number two receiver.
Yeah, and even if he is just a vertical threat with a little bit of, if he just adds a little bit to the route tree, like he adds a little bit in terms of intermediate routes and short routes, um, I think that is massive, for this offense. And like you said, it makes him impossible to cover because I think the biggest indictment of him was 2 years ago in the spring game when LaTerrence Welsh just kind of swallowed him up. Like he completely covered him, and everyone was like, "Oh wow, LaTerrence Welsh is out here locking up Chris Hilton," and it's because Chris Hilton was just running go routes and LaTerrence Welsh was staying with him. And it's like, okay, the variety needs to be a priority for Hilton in terms of you can't just run straight and run by people. Like at a certain degree, yes, it helps. Obviously, the safeties get pushed back, the corners get pushed, like everything helps the rest of the offense. But now, if you are asking him to step into a more prominent role at receiver, he has to be more dynamic and more just all around talented. And so, um, yeah, I believe him to have a good year. I'm interested to see how exactly he shuffles into the offense in terms of like in the spring game. It was a good, not great. He had that one drop. I do believe that he's putting in a lot of work. I do believe that he's healthy, and I do believe that he's going to have a good year. A lot of it to me, which you kind of mentioned, is I need to just kind of see it maybe. And that's going to be interesting to me to see how they use him and how he does in this expanded role this year. So, um, I'm probably just going with production instead of potential, but I understand Hilton has a world of potential.
So my third pick is CJ Daniels out of Liberty. Is your third Chris Hilton?
Yes.
Okay.
Um, yes,
Oh,
it is. It is. It's close to me, but
okay.
yes.
Is your it's close option B going to be your wild card?
Sure, yes.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Offer it up.
Xavier Thomas is my
That's
is
my
right.
wild card too.
Yeah, I have him fairly close to Thomas. Like if I'm just doing like in my brain thinks in terms of like rankings and ratings and stuff like that. Like I have Thomas like close to Hilton in that like theoretical comparison, not in terms of how they play, but we're talking about a guy that had 500-yard receiving on an offense that had 2,000 yards passing. Like
They
this,
were terrible.
they
And
were
this
terrible.
was the rest in peace, Mike Leach. But this was this past season, the post Leach era. They just weren't the same football team. They didn't throw the football. So yes,
No.
to get 500 yards on that team, which was bad throwing the football, is a big. That's 1,000 yards here with
Yeah,
Jaden
it's
Daniels.
at least like 900 yards, and you go from there. And the yards after catch, the wiggle, the ability to make a guy miss. We see it as a punt returner, but you see it as a receiver as well, and I think that's incredibly valuable. And he was doing that in the SEC. So I'm very high on Xavier Thomas. I think he has a very defined role in this offense, which I think is valuable. And I think he's going to be able, and he's not like small, right? Like he's 5'11", 6 foot. So it's not like he's, Aaron Anderson or, some of these guys that are shorter. I think Xavier Thomas has enough size to him to hold up consistently. And he's obviously just extremely elusive.
Aaron Anderson is listed at 5'8", 185 right now. This is off the LSU roster, give or take how accurate that is. Xavier Thomas, 5'10", 194. So he's got a
There
couple
you
of inches and certainly maybe 10 or 15 pounds on him
go. Yeah.
in that range. I was very, and look, the Xavier Thomas background, for those that don't know, he played at John Ehret. He's a New Orleans kid. LSU was on him in high school. They never really pushed to get the offer. He went to state, and he's been a dynamic, one of the country's best, most consistent return specialists. And kickoff returns haven't been like the biggest issue in the world. Half the time, the other team's going to kick it out of the back of the end zone, anyways. But punt
Unless Jack
returns
Bash
are
was back there.
that's true. But he did fumble one at the Tennessee, but who
Yes.
cares? Moving on.
Yeah.
Punt returns are a glaring issue in the first 2 years of Kelly era because they have basically both years tried out talented players at the position, bailed on it, and went to, and I'm not saying Greg Clayton isn't talented, went to a preferred walk on in Greg Clayton because they said he's the only one we can trust. Will just catch the football and give it back to the offense. Well, when you have the number one offense in college football like they did this past year, you can do that. You don't need that extra 10 or 15 yards that a return man might get you. But they went and got Xavier Thomas back home to Louisiana from state. I presume he will take over the duties on punt returns as well as kickoff. I also wonder is do we view him in that same Aaron Anderson type offensive role? Because when you said there's a very specific skill set for a guy like Xavier Thomas on offense, it's and when I've asked around, and this isn't demeaning in any way, and maybe the terminology is not correct, but like gadget player, utility guy, like someone who you do a number of different things with because he has that skill set, jet sweeps,
The
quick
way
spring,
the way I
tunnel
think
sweep.
Joe Sloan worded it in his press conference in the spring was trying to create punt return opportunities on offense for him.
There you go. Trust in the OC. That's a better way to put it than my rumblings incoherently there. But I don't know. Like, are they the same there? Like, are they the same player?
In terms of Xavier and
Aaron Anderson. Do they do the same stuff?
yes, I think Thomas has more to his game than Anderson personally. I think Anderson's obviously incredibly I think he's healthy this year, which is huge, but I
Matters,
ex-
yes.
yeah, I have some expectations for Anderson, but I just think Thomas is a little bit more well-rounded just across the ball. Like he can do all that gadget stuff, and then also I do think there is some route tree ability with Thomas. So we'll see how that, what they ask them to do.
Okay. So our top three receivers as of the start of July will be Kyron Lacey, Chris Hilton, and CJ Daniels. Hey, look at that. Three vets. No shocker.
Yeah.
With our wild cards both going with Xavier Thomas. Curious of what Aaron Anderson brings. But look,
So,
this is a room that also has Kyle Parker coming into year two, Shelton Sampson, a former top 100 player, coming into year two. Landon Ibieta is finally cleared and healthy as a guy who can be an option for you. You bring in who we mentioned, Jelani Watkins, one of the fastest players in America, and then Kylan Billiot, who soared from no offers to a borderline top 100 prospect when he signed coming out of South Louisiana. So talent isn't the issue. I'm very curious to see how many guys get involved. Should be even when you lose two first round picks at receiver. I'm not sitting here thinking, gosh, boy, like guys got to step up at receiver. Like I feel like the natural transition is understood of we went and got one proven portal guy, but these other guys are all been here at least one full season. They know what to expect. It's their time now.
yeah. All right, that was
Let's
good.
hit a little ad read here, and a shout out to Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. Still rocking with them. There have been people reach out to Andy over the summer months. We definitely appreciate that and appreciate y'all telling him that you heard about it here on the Bengal Tiger podcast. He does a bunch of stuff with a lot of the On3 podcasts. But for those that don't know, Andy runs My Perfect Franchise. You can check it out at myperfectfranchise.net. You can email him at Andy, A-N-D-Y, at myperfectfranchise.net. But he's been in the franchise business as a franchise owner, a part owner, a consultant for decades. And now he's sort of shifted over the last 10 years plus to really consulting more and trying to bring more people into becoming a franchisee or at least figuring out more about it. And look, a side hustle if you want it to be. It's a full-time job if you want it to be. Just a way to diversify, build some extra wealth, maybe leave something onto your kids, get them involved if they're coming out of college and looking to get into a line of work and are unsure about it. Andy said he's fielded calls about every single one of those different talking points. And here's the best part, which is why he does it with us and wants us to talk about it on the podcast, to call him and just talk 100% free. His number is 404 973 9901. That's 404 973 9901. Check out myperfectfranchise.net or email him, Andy, ANDY, at myperfectfranchise.net, and just say, hey, look, I heard about it. I don't know whether it is any type of business that you're looking to go into. There are opportunities out there. And he said that the Rolodex is deep, and people are often surprised that they can come up with kind of a passion of theirs out of left field. And he says, hey, look, this is a direction I would take it. Here's people you can get involved with. Here's what people have done before. So Andy's a great guy. My Perfect Franchise has been an awesome startup turned big time business for him. So give him a shout, show him support. He supports the pod, supports the Bengal Tiger, and it's much appreciated. So, My Perfect Franchise. Matty B, we've run long. We're doing these all summer. Executive decision. We would sit on here all day and talk about corners. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about corners next time. That's
Yeah.
one that's like a hottest topic that could be out
Yeah,
there
we
right
can do a whole podcast on that.
now. So let's go. Let's go safety. Here's
Let's
my
just do
question for
safeties.
us
Yeah.
at competition series with safety. And there's also this new star position, right? And I don't want to call it like a nickel. It is an extra DB, but it's a safety, a third safety. And we saw them trying to do some of this even a year ago, bringing a third safety in. But a third safety who plays closer to the line of scrimmage, they feel Major Burns, that suits him better than his role did a year ago at safety, is how Blake Baker, the new DC, Jake Olson, the new safeties coach, Corey Raymond, new secondary coach, they put him there in the spring and they felt like he did very well.
Yeah.
They had Kylan Jackson backing him up. Kylan Jackson is also getting safety reps. We've seen other guys get safety reps behind the starters, whether it be a Jordan Allen or whether it be newcomers getting second team stuff in Deshaun Spears, Joel Rogers. Deshaun Spears is formerly Deshaun McBride. He's changed his last name to honor his stepfather. Once he turned 18 years old, he was able to change his name. So if you see that pop up, Deshaun Spears, that is Deshaun McBride, the top 100 prospect out of Denham Springs here in the Baton Rouge area. I'll pose the question like this. Sage Ryan has more than 20 starts. I didn't do my homework here.
A
30
lot.
probably. I
Yeah.
mean,
A
30
lot.
something college starts. Jordan Gilbert has well into double digit college starts. He played at U High here on campus at LSU, but went to A&M for a couple seasons. Started there, ran into the injury bug, but he's healthy now. He's also back home and ran first team all spring. Then Sage Ryan gets moved back from corner, where he had to go last year just to help,
Yeah.
to his natural position of safety. He's well into the double digit starts. He might be nearing 20. What point in a coach's mindset is, hey, I think that these three vets who by far have more starts than anyone else, nobody, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of this talk we're about to have here is about Kylan Jackson. He played at Zachary. He was a little slow to start a year ago. Brian Kelly was kind of challenging him to kind of really embrace the program. He did. By year's end, they were putting him into every game as that guy above Ryan Yates, who ended up transferring out. So he's clearly next up at safety, and Jordan Allen's in that group as well. When do you pick two guys who have never started to start eating into reps of guys who have 20, 30 starts under their belt? And mind you, this is a new defense, new defensive scheme,
Yes.
first year coordinator, first year position coaches. I think so many LSU fans are saying, are we just going with these guys because they're the vets and all this? Because we've seen them all have hiccups. Granted, Sage is back at his more natural spot. They
Yeah.
feel Major's spot at this star position is better than his one at safety. And we've not seen Jordan in an LSU uniform. So these guys can sort of rewrite maybe some missteps along the way and be very great players this year.
Yeah.
What is your read on this going into a month from now when they hit fall camp? What is the goal?
Just flatly, I expect the safety position to be better than what it was last year. Like you said, Major Burns never looked comfortable at that spot. I was amongst the
At
biggest
corner.
Major
Oh,
Burns.
Major Burns. I'm sorry. I thought you meant Sage.
No, no, Major. So yeah, Major Burns. I expect him to be more comfortable here. I mean, I was as vocal as anybody in terms of just his lack of playmaking ability in the back end. Um, Andre Sam, we know what he was, a kind of a 1 year kind of stopgap player. I think Jordan Gilbert is significantly better than him. I was especially high on Gilbert coming out in terms of his transfer to LSU. I think his tape at A&M when he was healthy was pretty good. That's why he started there. The question for me became watching the spring game, and I don't want to overtake too much from the spring game or spring in general, but like Gilbert and Ryan once again did not look like those playmakers that you want them to be. So how high is their ceiling? I don't know, but I think Gilbert and Ryan are going to be better than Burns and Sam were last year at the safety position. To your point, the biggest question to me is Major Burns at star. We've heard all spring and kind of all off season that this is where he wants to play. This is more comfortable for him. He still has to make those tackles, still has to be a presence in the box, still has to be able to cover his space better than he did last year. It should be a more defined role, less, roaming for him, but he has to make those plays. And if not, to your question, I think as soon as he starts not making those plays, we're looking at Kylan Jackson nipping at his heels relatively quickly with this new staff. They don't owe him anything. They don't owe anybody anything here. I think Kylan Jackson in year 2 is a legitimate player, legitimate size, legitimate run stuffer at times, especially if you put him at that star spot. So I like Kylan Jackson to be pushing Major Burns throughout this entire season. Whether that means he starts over him a game, I don't know, but he should be on the field a healthy amount. So that's Kylan Jackson. And then Deshaun Spears, I think I don't like it will take Gilbert and Ryan to collapse, like have a bad season for Spears to step in and start as a true freshman. I think he's incredibly talented, but that's asking a lot for Spears to step up and step over Gilbert or Ryan.
Yeah, the other thing I think that, and one, they played those safeties, and this is a new staff, but the safeties last year played basically every snap, and
Yeah,
Ryan Yates or Jordan Allen or Kylan Jackson, whatever point of the season it is, that third guy just played very sparingly, like
yeah, like
eight,
different
10 snaps
packages.
a
Yeah,
game,
not
if
much.
not fewer than that. Not even counting injuries, because if someone got injured, Kylan Jackson's going in or Jordan Allen's
Yeah,
going in, whomever it might be. Not counting that, do we at least see more of a rotation this year?
I think so. I think the interesting spot, which we haven't talked about, like, and we're not going to talk about the cornerback position, but I think like Toviano's an interesting one because you could play him at any 5 of the defensive back positions, and if he's not starting at corner, then I would love Toviano in like a utility role and like whatever they need from him, like put him in for a dime package, a specific nickel package, third downs or something. Like I think Toviano's the interesting like Swiss Army knife here. I want to get on the field in any way, shape, or form. So in that aspect, yes, I would like Toviano and Jackson and then Spears to get in. I just think there's a lot of different ways they could play this, and I'm not even sure they know 100% how much they want to rotate at this moment. So, um, yeah, I think they rotate. I'm not sure how much. If Gilbert and Ryan are fantastic, then leave them in. But ultimately, I don't know how high like expectations are at this moment.
I'm with you. I'm with you. You're hearing beeping coming in. We've got recruiting news all over. If you're listening to this,
Oof.
Brandon Brown, who's committed to Texas, we put in on 3 RPM flip picks for him to flip to LSU, a defensive tackle, 4-star would be massive for Bo Davis, who got him committed to Texas when he was on staff there. His mom had said he was going to announce the 4th. Now he'll announce the 5th. So Friday, if you're listening to this, we have plenty of other recruiting coverage coming, but it will be a big week on the recruiting front. Thursday, July 4th, Zion Williams out of Texas, a four-star out of Lufkin, defensive tackle, announces his decision. We expect LSU to beat out Texas there, then and Oklahoma and TCU. Those are his final four. And then on Friday, Damian Shanklin, the number one player in Indiana, a top 100 prospect, four-star edge rusher. We expect to pick LSU over Ohio State and Bama. That'll be on Friday. And now Brandon Brown's mom, who, as I said, has been committed to Texas. We think he's going to flip to LSU. He'll do it on Friday. So big week coming, Matty B, in terms of defensive line, the trenches. We know Brad Davis has things rolling with the O linemen. They have four guys committed, one legacy, three top 100 recruits are on board on the O line. And what do you know? Here comes Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples right behind him. And Kevin Peoples already has Jesse Harold out of Tampa, a top 100 edge rusher committed. Getting Shanklin could be another out of state guy that's a top 100 edge rusher. And then you could go back to back days landing four-star defensive tackles. The fans asked for it, Matty B. Now they're delivering. We knew that defensive recruiting would be a little bit behind the offense, given that the offense finished number one in the country. The staff
Yeah.
stayed the same. They could keep knocking down their dominoes. The new defensive staff got here at the end of January and basically had to put their board together. So the dominoes are now dropping for the defensive coaches. And LSU has the number 3 class in the country right now. Bama, Ohio State, LSU have kind of jockeyed for 1, 2, 3 with a recent surge from the Tide. And here comes LSU with the counterpunch. So this is just what you want to see from recruiting.
Yep. There you go. If you stayed 45 minutes in, you get some free recruiting talk at the end of
That's
the
right.
podcast.
We
So
substituted the corner stuff, which has to be its own pod for that. But
yeah,
I'm
can't
with
do
you. Look, I'm very corner is one we can talk for all day. Safety, we know who those 3 guys are going to be that start. I am just curious how long it takes for that next guy up, whether it's Kylan or Jordan Allen or whomever, to break through and say, hey, look, I'm really earning some reps here. And again, a good problem to have because last year it kind of felt like their answer was, we're just going to play Andre Sam and Major Burns on every play. And if Ryan Yates is a true freshman gets in at the end, so be it. And that was kind of the plan for the first half of the season. So let's see how it goes this time around. A lot of folks high though on Kylan Jackson. We will say that.
Yep.
Anything else, Matty B, before we sign off here?
Nope. We got everything in. Fit check, Flage, football,
Angel
recruiting,
Reese, WNBA All
all
Star
star.
voting, made the
She made it.
squad, made the
She's in all
squad.
star. Yeah,
She's an All Star in year 1.
yeah, she's incredible. But yeah, I think we covered everything. We'll be back. We'll continue to do some of these before fall camp starts up in August, and kind of keep you up to date on what we're thinking, what we're hearing, and all that good stuff. Check out the Bengal Tiger On3 if you haven't already. Like Shay said, tons of recruiting news going up throughout the this month with, commits, visits, all everything like that. I got some basketball stuff as well on the men's and women's side. Recruiting, which is heating up as well. They set their official visit dates. Might have one for Aaliyah Chavez in the coming month as well. So we'll see what we got there. But yeah, that's all we got. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't already, and we will talk to y'all later.